Thalamus is a 2 to 4 player abstract strategy board game that takes 5 to 10 minutes to play. Now inside the rather nice magnetised box, you will have the rule sheet. You'll have 4 pawns of different colours, 12 deflector disks, and the board itself. Now Thalamus is ideal for travel because it's very portable and has a small footprint. To set up the game, simply put the 12 deflector disks on the shaded spots on the board. And when you place the discs, they have to be aligned so they are either perfectly vertical, perfectly horizontal, or perfectly diagonal. And when they go diagonal, they can go either way, so they can go that way or like this. And you're going to do that randomly until all 12 spots are completely filled in with the deflector discs like this. Once the deflector discs have been placed onto the board, starting with a random start player, each player in turn will place their pawn onto any empty square on the board. So let's just say the white player put theirs here and the yellow player put theirs here. Now, of course, if you are playing with more than 2 players, then you'll continue that process until all pawns are placed onto the board. But for the example I'm showing you now, I'm going to play with only 2 players. The objective of Thalamus is to eliminate all of your opponent's pawns from the board and to be the last player standing. If you are the last player standing, you will be declared the winner. So let's talk about how to play Thalamus. So starting with the start player and then continuing clockwise until all but 1 player has been eliminated, players will take 1 action out of a possible 6 on their turn. Now, before we go into each of the actions, let's talk about the golden rule, which is that each space on the board can only ever contain 1 component, whether that be a pawn or a deflector disk. Let's talk about the move action. So this is how you move your pawn around the map. Now, when you move your pawn, you can move it either orthogonally or diagonally into an empty space without any issues. So for example, I could move this piece here, I could move it here, I could move it here, 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 or I could even move it to a space where a deflector disk is by pushing it like so. So I could move this pawn along here like this, as long as the space behind the disk was free, because you can only ever move 1 deflector disk each movement this way. And that even applies to a pull action. So if you wanted to move, you can even pull this along with you like so. And you can even do it by dragging it with you like this. So this pawn could actually move this disc with him like this, should you wish to. But again, you're only moving 1 square per turn, and you cannot ever move discs diagonally this way. So I could not do this. This would be an illegal move. You can only do it orthogonally that way, like so, but you can move diagonally as long as you are not moving into another deflector disc or, of course, another player's pawn. If you want to, you can even wrap around the board by moving from this space onto this space like so, and that even applies to going from the top of the board to the bottom of the board like so. But again, this does not apply diagonally. I could not, for example, move like this and then come off here. Again, it would only apply to orthogonal moves when you are wrapping around the board. Additionally, you cannot ever move your pawn between 2 discs like this. So you cannot do a movement action and squeeze your pawn between the 2. The second action a player can select is the Telekinetic Push action. And this is another way of moving the deflector discs around the board. However, you need not be adjacent to a deflector disc when you move the disc this way. However, you do need to have direct line of sight to that disc in the same row or column as your pawn. So for example, I could at the moment only telekinetically push this deflector disc because it's the only deflector disc in the same row or column as me that I have line of sight to. This would also apply to discs in the same row or column that are blocked by another disc. So at the moment, this is still the only disc that I can telekinetically push because this one is blocked by this particular piece. But let's move this one back and show you how the action works. So again, if you do reach that criteria, then you can push the disc as far as you like along that row or column, even hitting a player's pawn if you do so, which will eliminate them from the game. And you can stop wherever you like. You do not have to go exactly to the end. Again, you can stop at any distance you see fit. So that is how the push action works. Much like the other way of pushing the disk, the orientation of the disk will always remain the same when you take this action. The telekinetic pull action works in a very similar way, but instead of pushing the disk away from you, you are going to pull the disk towards you as far as you like. So again, if the disk was here to start with, I could stop here, 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 or here. In the rare occasion that someone will be stood next to you like this, you could actually pull the disk into them and eliminate their opponent from the board. Again, to repeat myself, the orientation of the disk does not change when you telekinetically pull a deflector disk. And also you cannot do it if the disk is not in your line of sight. So again, this is the only disk that I could pull at this time because this disk is blocked by this disk in terms of line of sight. The next action is the rotate action. Now this is how you rotate the deflector disks. And when you take this action, you can choose any disk on the board. It does not need to be adjacent to where your pawn currently is. So even as the white player, if I wanted to, I could choose to rotate this disk in any direction as long as it ends in a perfectly diagonal, a perfectly horizontal, or a perfectly vertical direction like so. Something that is important to note is that if you take the rotate action, the next player in line cannot rotate that particular disc on their turn. It would have to be the player after that. So again, if you want to take the rotate action, the next player in line cannot rotate the disc that has just been moved. The fifth action you can select is the remove action. This is how you remove deflector disks from the board. Now, unlike the rotate action, you do need to have your pawn next to, whether that be orthogonally or diagonally, next to the deflector disk that you want to remove. So if it's the white player turn, they can choose the remove action and remove this deflector disk from the board. They could also do it to this disk if they wanted to, but they could not do it to this disk because there is one space away. Again, you can only do one disk per turn, and when you do take this action, you will remove that disk from the board and it will remain off the board until the end of the game. And the final action is the shoot action, which will be the main way to eliminate your opponent's pawns from the board. Now, the best way to frame the shoot action is to imagine a laser coming from your pawn in the horizontal, vertical, and diagonal directions from where your pawn is standing. Now, if you were to ever be able to trace a clean route from your pawn to an opponent's pawn, you can simply take the shoot action and eliminate them from the board. That also applies to diagonal, so you could simply shoot from here to here and eliminate this piece. And it also applies to going through the gaps between the deflector disks. So this white pawn or the black pawn, of course, could shoot each other because the laser would fit through the gap between the deflector disks. However, the best way to make the most from the shoot action is to make use of the deflector disks, because they can definitely mislead and almost capture your opponent's pawns. So the way to use the deflector disks is that whenever you basically trace your pawn to another deflector disk, then you will continue that route by following the lines on that disk. So for example, if I wanted to maybe shoot my laser towards this disk here, it would touch the disk, and then from the disk it would now start as a new spawning point from that laser to shoot from. So I'd shoot from here to this disk would shoot from here to this disk, and then this disk would shoot from here to my opponent's pawn, thus eliminating him from the game. You can also use the corner panels, which are these corner sections of the main board where you see this white line is, as another deflector disk, but we call those corner panels instead. So another way to eliminate this pawn would be to shoot this corner panel, The corner panel always deflects either perfectly along the edges of the board, and then you could continue the path of that laser as usual. So as the white player, I could shoot this corner panel, which would do the laser across here, which would hit this deflector disk, which would shoot across here, which would hit this deflector disk, which will go here, 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 and again, eliminating my opponent's pawn from the board. Whenever you do shoot a deflector disc, you can choose which edge of the deflector disc to continue the route from. And if you ever make an error, as if you do not actually strike your opponent's pawn when you do take that shoot action, which again will be a silly mistake, the shot would simply continue until it hits a wall or is caught in a perpetual loop, so that the shot would not go anywhere. But again, 99 times out of 100, you will only take the shoot action if it will be guaranteed to eliminate your opponent's piece from the board. And something else that is worth noting is that deflector discs never ever wrap around the board. So as the yellow player here, I could not push this disc onto this side. Only pawns can wrap around the board like so. So now you know how to play the basics of Thalamus. You may want to try some different challenges. So we've already touched on the head-to-head mode, where you simply have one player versus another. But when you play this mode, you may wish to play the best of 3, 5, or 7 games to determine the best overall player. Additionally, when you start introducing a third or fourth player into the game, please be prepared for a more chaotic experience. Of course, with more moving parts, it means you have to look over your shoulder from different angles. And when you play with 3 or 4 players, of course you could play just a single game, but you may wish to use this scoring chart here that comes in the rule sheet, where the longer you stay in the game, the more points you'll get. And if you play a predetermined amount of games, you can work out who has the most points at the end of those games. Additionally, if you do have 4 players, a particularly challenging way to play the game is by having 2 versus 2, where you and a teammate will work together to try and eliminate the opposing team. And of course, as long as one player survives, that entire team will win. And when you play this way, you must sit so that you are not next to your teammate. So again, going in clockwise order, it would be one team, then the other, then another team, and then the other, so on. So again, you keep taking turns as to who is or which team is taking their action. Additionally, if you want a very challenging way to play the game, you can simply do a 1 versus 1 game, but control 2 pawns each, which is very difficult because sometimes you may be forced to sacrifice 1 pawn in order to keep your remaining one in the game and to hopefully win. But that is how you play Thalamus. Hopefully this has made sense to you. If you are interested in the game, then please do send me an email on the below email address. Additionally, be sure to keep an eye out on your online stores at eBay and other ways in which you can grab yourself a copy. But again, this is an ideal game if you want a game with a small footprint, something for travel that's not going to take up much space in your bag, has fast decisions, strategic decisions, as well as tactical decisions, and of course is a versatile system where you can play in lots of different modes. But hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Check out my other content too. But for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.